The upcoming 250th anniversary of the United States often evokes a specific image: flawless founders, marble monuments, and a visionary, finished creation. That image sits awkwardly alongside today's reality. Political polarization, algorithmic echo chambers, and institutional strain create a sense of deep instability. This tension suggests American democracy operates as a volatile collision between high Enlightenment ideals and difficult physical realities. Historically, this friction redraws the boundaries of American life, forcing the government to reconcile promises with practices. Survival across the next 2.5 centuries depends on examining these founding contradictions as a blueprint for an ongoing, often painful negotiation. In 1776, the founding claim was radical: a nation deriving its legitimacy from the consent of its citizens, justified by universal natural rights. But that claim lived alongside a colonial economy built on chattel slavery and the aggressive displacement of indigenous nations. The framers responded with a structural contract. They designed an architecture of checks and balances, a legal framework focused on managing power rather than immediately resolving the moral paradoxes of the era. The founding generation created a political arena for the conflict over freedom and power, but they left the fight itself to the future. Westward expansion and irreconcilable economic systems eventually broke those early constitutional compromises. When political systems fail, the physical cost is absolute. The Civil War was a total breakdown, resulting in a loss of life that exceeded every other American conflict combined. Abstract debates over sovereignty became intimate tragedies, fracturing families and putting rifles into the hands of teenagers who had grown up in the same communities. From that violence came a new legal reality. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments effectively rewrote the Constitution's definition of a citizen. These milestones brought newly emancipated Americans into the highest levels of governance, including the first Black representatives to the United States Congress. This proved the democratic system could be forcibly expanded, compelling the nation to reconcile its laws with its stated ideals of equality. By 1900, the United States possessed engineering capacity and economic wealth to reshape global geography, building the massive concrete locks of the Panama Canal. This era saw a concentration of power in unregulated monopolies. Titans of industry controlled capital on a scale that rivaled the authority of elected officials. That wealth was mirrored by urban squalor. In industrial centers, millions of immigrant laborers lived in crowded, unsafe tenements while facing exploitation on the factory floor. Workers coordinated their resistance, staging mass strikes to demand physical safety and economic dignity. Localized labor disputes grew into national movements. Suffragists and progressives marched for structural intervention, weaponizing public assembly to demand inclusion. These movements forced the government to invent new protections: antitrust laws, labor regulations, and the 19th Amendment. Citizens demonstrated that the democratic framework could be retrofitted to check and balance entirely new forms of corporate and political power. Today, the same pattern of crisis and collision has returned. Algorithmic misinformation, extreme wealth gaps, and deep polarization are testing the resilience of the current republic. Addressing these crises requires hope as a disciplined democratic resource, acknowledging historic failures without retreating into cynicism. Rebuilding the system demands the same civic participation that previous generations used to force their own expansions of liberty. The work of 1776 remains an ongoing assignment. The survival of the next 2.5 centuries depends on how we choose to navigate the collisions of the present.